Daddy, are we still going to the concert? Jace asked, his small fingers tugging at the hem of his father's faded sweatshirt. Jordan Steele crouched down and gave his 6-year-old son a tired smile, hiding the panic behind his eyes. Buddy, we'll see, okay? Let's get through today first. He didn't have the heart to tell Jace that the tickets were already refunded. Rent was due, groceries were low, and the plumbing in their apartment had started leaking again. A concert was a luxury he couldn't afford anymore, not when he was barely managing 2 part-time jobs and juggling daycare pickups. He ruffled Jace's hair, then glanced around the downtown plaza where the community fair was buzzing. Jordan had brought Jace out for some free fun balloons, a face painting booth, and maybe a hot dog if they could stretch the cash. That's when he saw her. She was standing near the concert flyer wall, wearing jeans and a plain white tee, her dark blonde hair pulled into a loose braid. She looked like she didn't belong here, too polished, too out of place, but she was staring at the poster for the sold-out outdoor concert like she was actually considering showing up alone. He tried not to stare, but Jace didn't care about social cues. "She's pretty," Jace whispered loudly. Jordan chuckled under his breath and took his son's hand. "Come on, Romeo." But they didn't get far before she turned. "Hey," she called, walking over. Her voice was smooth but warm. "Do you guys like the Wild Rivers?" Jordan blinked. "Yeah, actually, we were supposed to go tonight, but—" "They sold out," she finished for him, her smile quick. "I have 2 tickets. I was supposed to go with someone, but plans changed." He didn't respond. Was she offering? "I know it's weird," she went on, "but you've got a kid, and I don't want them to go to waste. You look like you'd enjoy it more than I would alone." Jordan hesitated. He glanced down at Jace, whose eyes were practically glowing. "I don't have the money to." "They're free," she said quickly. "I'm not selling them, just paying it forward." "Seriously?" She nodded and held them out. "I'm Emery." "Jordan," he replied, still stunned. "This is Jace." "Hi," Jace said, beaming. Emery knelt. "Hi, Jace. Hope you like live music." "Daddy has a guitar at home," Jace said proudly. "Do you play?" she asked, looking up at Jordan. "Used to before life got in the way," he said. She smiled. "Maybe it's time to get back to it." Emery handed him the tickets, and for a second their fingers brushed. Jordan felt something that surprised him: warmth, interest, something he hadn't felt in a long time. "Thank you," he said, his voice softer now. "You didn't have to do this." "I know," she said, standing, "but I wanted to." Before he could ask her more, she waved and walked off into the crowd. Later that night, Jordan and Jace stood in the concert crowd, music pulsing through the air, lights flashing. Jace was on Jordan's shoulders, squealing with joy. Jordan wasn't thinking about bills or jobs or the broken pipe under the sink. He was thinking about Emory. The next afternoon, Jordan dropped Jace off at daycare and walked into his weekend job at a cafe near the city center. He was behind the counter, wiping down tables, when a familiar voice said, "Fancy seeing you here." He turned, nearly dropping the rag. "Emory." She was in a navy blazer now, heels clicking against the tile, her braid replaced by a sleek bun. She looked different. "Hi," she said, and her smile was just as warm. "Did you and Jace have fun?" He hasn't stopped talking about it. You seriously made his year. "I'm glad," she said. "You work here." "Yeah, one of 2 jobs. Pays the bills mostly." "I admire that," she said, and something about the way she looked at him made his throat tighten. He cleared it. "What about you? What do you do?" She hesitated, then gave a half shrug. "I'm in tech." He smiled, cool, like software stuff. "Something like that." She didn't elaborate, he didn't push. Over the next few weeks, Emery started showing up more. sometimes alone, sometimes grabbing coffee. They talked more, about music, about their childhoods. She told him she grew up in Oregon. He told her about how he'd raised Jace since his ex left 3 years ago. They laughed a lot. She always asked about Jace. She always remembered the little things. One rainy Tuesday, she sat at the corner table and said, "You ever think about playing again?" Jordan looked up from his mop. "Music." "Yes, you light up when you talk about it." He looked down at his hands. "I'd love to, but it's not realistic." "Maybe reality needs a little help," she said softly. He looked at her, really looked. There was something in her eyes he couldn't name: hope, maybe, curiosity. "You're not like most people," he said. "Maybe you just haven't met the right people," she replied, her voice low. The next day, when he got home, there was a package at his door. Inside was a brand new acoustic guitar. No note, just a small card that said, "Play again." He stared at it for a long time, heart pounding. Jace ran up and gasped, "Daddy, is that for you?" Jordan didn't answer. He just picked it up slowly, sat on the couch, and strummed. The sound filled the room like it had been waiting years to come back. That weekend, Emery invited them to dinner. She picked a place Jordan had never been to: rooftop, white tablecloths, shimmering lights. He almost didn't go. He didn't own anything fancy, and he didn't want to look out of place. But she greeted them at the elevator in a soft blue dress and smiled like he was exactly who she'd been waiting for. The host led them to a private corner table with a view of the skyline. "This is not what I expected," Jordan said, watching Jace color on the kids' menu. "I like nice things," Emery said easily, "but I like real people more." He watched her across the table, wondering what her story really was. And why she kept looking at him like he meant something. That night, after dropping Jace off at his apartment, Emery walked Jordan to his door. "You didn't have to do any of this," he said. "I know," she whispered, "but I wanted to." He swallowed. "Why?" She looked up at him, eyes unreadable. "Because can't stop thinking about you." Jordan's breath caught. "And because haven't felt this in a long time," she added. He didn't wait. He kissed her, right there on the porch, with rain starting to fall and his heart pounding like a drum. And when she kissed him back, he knew it wasn't just kindness. It was something real. Something neither of them had expected. Jordan hadn't expected to see her again so soon. It had only been 3 days since that kiss on the porch, and yet here she was standing just outside the school fence where he waited for Jace each afternoon, her arms folded loosely across her chest, sunglasses perched on her head. He blinked, unsure if he was imagining her. "You look surprised," Emery said, her voice light but unreadable. "I didn't realize you knew where to find me," he replied, shifting his weight. "Most people don't swing by elementary schools unless they have a reason." She glanced at the gate. "Figured you'd be here. I remembered you said you picked him up every day." He studied her face. "Why?" "Because didn't want that kiss to be the last time I saw you." Before he could respond, Jace burst through the gate, running full speed. "Emery!" She crouched just in time to catch him in a hug, laughing as he threw his arms around her neck. "Well, hey there, buddy. You miss me already." "You disappeared," he said, pulling back. "I thought you went back to your spaceship." Jordan raised an eyebrow. "Spaceship?" Emery grinned. "We had a very in-depth theory about me being an alien when he was drawing dinosaurs on the napkin at dinner." "That tracks," Jordan muttered, with a sideways glance at his son. "I was hoping," Emery said, standing, "you might want to grab dinner again, just the 3 of us. No rooftop views this time." Jordan hesitated, then nodded. "Sure." Emery's idea of no rooftop views was a family-run Mediterranean place tucked between a laundromat and a locksmith shop. Inside, the walls were covered in mismatched art, and the menu was handwritten in chalk. It smelled like garlic and roasted lamb, and Jace was instantly obsessed with the warm pita bread. "I didn't know this place existed," Jordan said, glancing around. "That's the point," Emery replied. "It's where I go when I want to disappear for a while." "You don't seem like someone who disappears often." "I don't," she said, picking at her couscous, "but sometimes I wish I could." Jordan studied her. Her posture was more relaxed here, her blazer replaced by a soft caramel sweater. She laughed more easily, less guarded. "You always this mysterious, with people you give concert tickets to." "Only the ones who make me forget. I'm supposed to be calculating everything." He leaned back in his chair. "You plan your life that tightly." "Let's just say I'm rarely surprised," she said, her voice dipping. "And was a surprise." She looked at him across the table, something flickering in her eyes. "The biggest one." After dinner, Emery offered to walk them home. Jace skipped ahead, swinging a paper bag of leftover baklava. "You didn't tell me what you really do," Jordan said softly as they reached the corner near his building. "Tech is vague." "I know," she said, her hands in her coat pockets. "It's not because I don't trust you, it's just complicated." "Try me." She exhaled, then glanced down the street. "I run a company." "A startup?" "A 100-year-old multinational," she said. "I inherited it, then rebuilt it." Jordan stopped walking. "I'm the CEO of Norwood Systems," she added, watching him carefully. "We do infrastructure and logistics software, among other things." He stared at her, processing. "That Norwood?" "Yes." He rubbed the back of his neck. "So when you said you liked nice things." "I wasn't trying to impress you that night, Jordan." "No," he said slowly. "You were trying not to scare me off." She nodded. He looked down the sidewalk where Jace waited, twirling in circles. "I don't know what to say," he admitted. "Say you'll still talk to me tomorrow." He looked at her again, really looked. "You don't care that I'm raising a kid on 2 jobs and borrowed groceries." "I care that you're doing it," she said. "That you show up every day. That you're the kind of person who makes a kid feel safe." Jordan's throat tightened. "I'm not used to people seeing that." Emery stepped closer. "Then maybe you've been around the wrong people." That night, long after Jace had fallen asleep, Jordan sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the guitar she'd given him. Her truth kept spinning in his mind. CEO, powerhouse, someone who could buy anything, command anyone. And somehow, she chose to sit across from him in a restaurant that served food on chipped plates and listen to Jace talk about dinosaurs. It didn't add up. The next morning, Jordan found a folded note under his door. No envelope, just his name in clean handwriting. It read, "I meant what I said, I see you." Underneath was a time, 7 o'clock, and an address he didn't recognize. He stood there, staring at it, until Jace patted in asking for cereal. That evening, after finding a sitter from the building next door, Jordan followed the address across town until he reached a tall, mirrored building with a discreet black awning. Inside, a doorman nodded and opened the elevator. When the doors opened on the top floor, he stepped into a space that didn't seem real. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the skyline. Sculptures and books lined the walls. In the center of it all, Emery stood barefoot on polished wood floors, holding 2 glasses of wine. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. Jordan looked around. "This is yours." She nodded, "One of them." He walked in slowly. "This doesn't feel like the same woman who sat on the curb with me while Jace chased pigeons." "That's because I've spent most of my life pretending to be someone else in rooms like this. And now, I want to be real, she said quietly, with you. He stepped closer. I don't know how to fit into this world. I'm not asking you to, she said. I just want you in mine. Jordan reached for the glass, his fingers brushing hers. You should know, he said, I don't do casual. Neither do I. They stood there, the city glittering behind them, the air between them charged with something unspoken and undeniable. And for the first time in years, Jordan realized he wasn't waiting for his life to start again. It already had. Jordan stood just inside the towering penthouse, the glass of wine untouched in his hand, his eyes moving across the room like he was trying to memorize every detail before it vanished. Do you ever get used to this? He asked, his voice quieter now, deeper. Emery didn't answer immediately. She walked to the edge of the window, the glow of the city lighting her profile. I don't think you're supposed to, she said finally. If you do, you stop seeing what's real. He stepped beside her, close enough to see the tension in her shoulders. You ever miss before all this? I wasn't always this, she said, her gaze drifting. My dad built Norwood from nothing. I spent more time watching him work than playing outside. When he died, I was 22. The board expected me to fail. Jordan's eyebrows lifted. And did you? She turned, her expression steady. No, I rebuilt the company, doubled its value, opened 3 new sectors, but I lost a lot of myself doing it. He leaned against the glass. So why me? Her laugh was faint. You didn't ask for anything. You didn't try to impress me or pretend you understood my world. You just showed up for your kid. You were honest. And you made me feel like I didn't have to be anyone else. Jordan set the glass down on a marble side table. I don't know how to do this with someone like you. Then let's not figure it out tonight, she said, stepping closer. Let's just be 2 people who wanted to see each other again. She reached for his hand, her skin warm against his. The moment stretched, thick with the kind of electricity that didn't need words. He let his fingers curl around hers. Later, as he walked through the quiet street below, the doorman giving him a respectful nod as he passed, Jordan felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Not nerves, not doubt. Hope. The next morning, Jordan woke to a knock at his door. Jace was still asleep in the next room. When he opened it, a sharply dressed man stood on the other side, holding a slim envelope. Delivery for Mr. Steele, the man said, then left without another word. Inside was an invitation and embossed card with a gold seal bearing the Norwood insignia. A gala, tonight. At the bottom, in looping black ink, someone had written, "No pressure, but I'd like to show you the other half of me." Jordan sat on the edge of the couch, the weight of the envelope in his hand. He didn't even own a suit. By the time noon rolled around, Emery hadn't called. She hadn't come by the cafe either. He paced, checked his phone out of habit, and stared at the card again. He didn't want to disappoint her, but he didn't want to feel like he didn't belong either. Later that afternoon, a knock came again. This time, it was a woman holding a garment bag and a shoebox. From MS Blake, she said. She said to tell you everything's taken care of. Jordan opened the bag slowly to reveal a tailored black tuxedo, crisp white shirt, and polished leather shoes. Inside the pocket was a small note. See you tonight. You'll look like yourself. That's all that matters. He ran a hand through his hair and exhaled. That night, he left Jace with their neighbor, a retired nurse named Donna who adored him. As the car pulled up outside the venue, Jordan stared through the tinted window at the towering hall lit by cascading chandeliers and lined with a red carpet. People in designer gowns and bespoke tuxedos swept past, laughing as flashes from cameras lit the sidewalk. The driver opened the door. Jordan stepped out, heart pounding. Inside, the room swelled with music and movement. Every table gleamed with crystal and gold. Waiters in white gloves passed champagne on silver trays. A string quartet played near the ballroom staircase. He scanned the room, uncertain until Emery appeared at the top of the stairs. She wore a sleek black gown, her hair swept up, a single diamond at her throat. But it wasn't the dress that caught his breath. It was the way she looked at him, as if nothing else existed. She descended the stairs slowly, people parting for her like she was gravity itself. When she reached him, she touched the lapel of his jacket. "You came," she said softly. "You sent a tux," he said, a smile tugging at his mouth. "I figured that was a challenge." "More like a hope." She took his hand and led him through the crowd, introducing him to people whose names he couldn't remember, whose companies he'd only seen on the sides of buildings. But no one looked at him sideways. No one questioned why he was there. Because she never let go of his hand. Later, they stepped onto the balcony, the city stretching beneath them. "You weren't nervous?" he asked as the door clicked shut behind them. "I was terrified," she said, "but not for the reasons you think. I didn't want to lose this." "This?" "You, Jace, the way you make me feel like don't have to have all the answers." He stepped closer. "You're not losing anything." "I've never trusted anyone with this part of my life," she admitted, her fingers tightening around his. "But I don't want to keep you hidden. I want to build something with you." Jordan leaned in, forehead resting gently against hers. "Then let's start right here." She closed her eyes. And just before he kissed her, she whispered, "I think I already fell." Their lips met under the lights, the city alive behind them, and for the first time in years, Jordan wasn't surviving. He was starting something. Something real. The sun was barely up when Jordan woke to the sound of Jace giggling in the kitchen. The scent of pancakes drifted through the apartment, and when he stepped out of his room, he found Emery at the stove, barefoot, hair down, wearing one of his old hoodies that dwarfed her frame. Jace sat on the counter, legs swinging, a bowl of strawberries in his lap. "She said I could help," he announced, holding up a sticky red finger. Jordan leaned against the doorframe. "I see she's already taken over my kitchen." Emery glanced over her shoulder. "You were still asleep. I figured breakfast was a safe rebellion." He crossed the room, kissed Jace's head, then paused beside her. "You look more dangerous like this than you did in that gown." "I'll take that as a compliment," she said, flipping the pancake with practiced ease. He studied her in the warm morning light. "You ever cook for board members?" She laughed, "Only the ones who get cranky without syrup." They sat together at the tiny kitchen table, the three of them, like it wasn't something out of a dream. Jordan watched as Jace told Emery about a science project involving magnets and paper clips. She listened like it was the most important thing she'd ever heard. After breakfast, she helped Jace build a cardboard rocket ship in the living room. Jordan stood back, arms crossed, watching as she taped and folded with the same focus she probably used in million-dollar meetings. "You don't scare easy," he said when they were alone again. "I've dealt with shareholders trying to replace me mid-quarter," she replied. "A 6-year-old armed with a glue stick doesn't even make the list." He nodded slowly. "So what happens now?" "I was hoping you'd tell me." "You've got a whole empire. I've got a 2-bedroom walk-up and a kid obsessed with dinosaurs. And I've never wanted anything more than I want this." He exhaled. "I'm not a project." "I know exactly what you are," she said. "You're the first thing in years that doesn't feel transactional." He didn't answer, not right away. He needed to be sure she understood. "I can't do this halfway," he said. "Not for me, not for him." "I'm not here for halfway either." Later that week, Emery invited them to a small event, a benefit for a local music program. Not a gala. No red carpet. Just a community space, folding chairs, and a room full of people who believed in giving kids a chance. Jordan hadn't played in front of anyone in years, but when the organizer asked for volunteers to share a song, Emery nudged his arm. "You brought the guitar," she whispered. He shook his head. "I didn't plan on." "But you brought it." He looked at her. "You're relentless. You're talented." So he got up, played a simple acoustic version of a song he used to sing to Jace during the worst nights. The room was quiet, then full of soft clapping. Jace cheered like it was a stadium. Afterward, Emery kissed him in front of everyone. "You should do that more often," she said. "What play?" "Surprise me." As spring turned to early summer, things changed, but not in the way Jordan feared. Emery started spending weekends at the apartment. She helped with school projects, learned how to make peanut butter sandwiches exactly the way Jace liked them, and fell asleep beside Jordan on the couch during movie nights. But she never tried to change anything. She still ran Norwood, still disappeared into her world of meetings and negotiations, but she always came back, always returned to them. Late one night, while Jace slept in the next room, Jordan sat on the floor beside her, watching her scroll through something on her tablet. "You ever think about slowing down?" he asked. She looked up. "You mean stepping away?" "Yeah." She set the tablet aside. "I've thought about it more since I met you than I ever did before." He rubbed his jaw. "I'm not asking you to. I just wondered if you ever wanted something different." "I want a life that feels like mine." She reached for his hand. "And you're the only one who ever made me believe that was possible." The next morning, she handed him a sealed envelope before leaving for a meeting. "Don't open it until I'm gone," she said, kissing his cheek. He waited 10 minutes after the elevator doors closed. Then he opened it. Inside was a letter, handwritten, no logos, no branding. "Jordan, I've spent most of my life building something that started with my father's dream. But somewhere along the way, I forgot to ask what I wanted. Now I know. I want a life with you and Jace. I want to wake up to pancakes and rocket ships and Sunday mornings that don't involve conference calls. I want music in the kitchen and messy couches and a front door that opens to people who love me for who I really am. So I'm stepping back, not giving up, just choosing different. I've appointed a new CEO. I'll still be involved, but I'm not needed every day anymore. But you are. If you'll have me for the ordinary days, the hard ones, the ones full of glue sticks and guitar strings, I'm here. Yours, Emery." Jordan read it twice, then again. The weight of her words sank deep. That night, she came back to find the apartment dimly lit, soft music playing, and Jace already asleep. Jordan met her at the door, pulled her inside, and said, "I read it." She searched his face. "Is it too much?" He shook his head. "It's everything." She exhaled, and her eyes shimmered. "I don't have a ring," he said. "I don't have a fancy speech, but I know one thing: I want to spend my life loving you." "I don't need a ring," she whispered. "I just need you." He kissed her like a man who'd waited his whole life to find home. Weeks later, in a sun-drenched garden surrounded by friends, neighbors, and a very excited Jace in a bow tie, Jordan and Emery said their vows. No press, no board members, just them under a canopy of string lights and laughter. At the reception, Jace tugged Jordan's sleeve and whispered, "Does this mean she's my mom now?" Jordan knelt beside him. "It means she's part of our family, forever." Jace grinned, then ran off to show Emery his dance moves. Jordan watched her laugh, arms open, catching their son mid-spin. She looked over and held out a hand. He took it. And just like that, everything that once felt impossible became real. A life built not on wealth or status but on love, and the woman who gave him back his music, his hope, and his heart. The early summer air was thick with honeysuckle, and the low hum of neighbors trimming hedges or walking dogs. Jordan stood on the porch of their new home, a modest, two-story house tucked into a quiet street where kids still rode bikes after dinner and neighbors brought over pie just because. The kind of place he'd never imagined living in, let alone with someone like Emery. Inside, the sound of Jace's feet pounding down the stairs made him turn just in time to catch the boy launching into his arms. "Dad," she said yes. Jordan caught him easily, laughing. "Who said yes to what?" "Emery said, can get a turtle if I finish my reading list." He raised an eyebrow. "You gonna actually read 20 books?" 22, Jace said confidently before wriggling down and running back into the house. Emery appeared in the doorway, barefoot and holding a mug, her hair still damp from the shower. "Was that a bribe?" Jordan asked, stepping inside and pulling the door shut behind him. "I prefer to call it a motivational pact," she replied, sipping from the mug. "Besides, if he's going to convince a turtle to live in his room, he better know how to take care of it." Jordan leaned in and kissed her temple. "You're a softie." Her eyes lifted to his. "Only with you too." They moved through their day like a well-practiced rhythm. Emery took a few calls from the advisory board she still consulted with. Jace worked on his book list with a level of focus that could only come from the promise of a reptilian roommate, and Jordan fixed the loose cabinet door in the kitchen that had been bugging him since move-in day. That evening, they drove out to a quiet stretch of beach 30 minutes from town, the one Emory had found on a spontaneous drive weeks earlier. They brought sandwiches, an old quilt, and a kite Jace had begged for at a gas station. As Jace ran down the sand, the kite jerking in the wind behind him, Jordan lay back on the blanket and let the sound of the waves settle over him. "I used to think peace was boring," Emery said, sitting beside him, knees pulled up. "And now I think I never knew what it felt like until this." He reached over and linked his fingers with hers. "I used to think love didn't look like this, that it had to be complicated, dramatic, painful." "It doesn't have to be that," she said softly. "It can be showing up, staying, trying again." They watched Jace collapse in the sand, laughing as the kite nosedived and tangled around his legs. "Do you ever miss it?" Jordan asked. "The pace, the spotlight, the pressure." "I thought I would," she admitted, "but I finally realized I was building someone else's version of success. This," she motioned to the beach, to Jace, to him, "this is mine." When the sun dipped low and the tide began creeping in, they packed up and drove home, windows down, Jace half asleep in the back seat. The next few weeks passed in a blur of laughter, mild chaos, and unexpected calm. Emery, free from the relentless schedule of corporate leadership, began teaching a small business management class at the community center on Wednesdays. Jordan picked up guitar lessons for local kids on Saturday mornings. Jace started swimming lessons and filled the fridge with turtle behavior charts. One night, just after Emery had finished grading a stack of project proposals, she looked up from her tablet and said, "I've never asked you something." Jordan glanced over from where he sat strumming on the couch. "Shoot." "If I hadn't told you who, was what, would you have still kissed me that night on the porch?" He set the guitar down and crossed to her. "I kissed you because you gave my son something I couldn't, because you made me feel seen for the first time in years, because you were kind without asking for anything in return. I didn't care who you were. I just cared that you were real." She nodded slowly, then whispered, "I still think about that night." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "I still dream about it." After Jace's turtle finally joined the family, a surprisingly energetic creature named Rocket, they began talking about the future in concrete terms. School districts, travel plans, expanding the garden, things Jordan never let himself imagine before. One morning, while they were cleaning out the garage, Jordan came across a box labeled Dad Stuff in faded Sharpie. Inside were his father's old records, a set of yellowed lyrics, and a photo of a much younger Jordan with a guitar and wide eyes full of dreams. He brought the photo inside and set it on the table. "You ever think you'd circle back to music?" Emery asked, drying her hands on a dish towel. "I did," he said, staring at the photo, "but I never thought I'd have someone to share it with." She stepped behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist, her chin resting on his shoulder. "You do now." The next month, Emery surprised him with a space an old bookstore converted into a small performance venue with exposed brick and incredible acoustics. She handed him the keys without ceremony. "For lessons, shows, open mic nights, whatever you want it to be," she said. Jordan blinked at her. "You're serious?" "I'm always serious when it comes to giving you what you deserve." He opened the doors and knew instantly this was the last missing piece. They named it the second verse. The grand opening drew half the town. Jace read a poem he wrote for the occasion. Emery stood beside Jordan as he played the first chord. Neither of them said anything, but their hands found each other's in the dark and stayed there. A year passed. The garden bloomed. Rocket became a local celebrity. Emery published a book on ethical entrepreneurship based on her lectures. Jordan's venue thrived, becoming a place where music and stories and second chances bloomed like wildflowers. On their anniversary, they stood in the backyard as Jace lit sparklers and ran in circles. "You still happy?" Emery asked, slipping her hand into his. "I'm so far past happy," he said, pulling her close. "I'm home." The stars above them were bright and endless, and the life they'd built, piece by piece, was stronger than anything either of them had known before. It wasn't about wealth or power or proving anyone wrong. It was about choosing love every day and never letting it go.